Here we go on another Pay It Forward. I'm super excited to bring it to you. If you don't know who I am, I'm TJ Thompson. Behind the camera is Stephanie Thompson, and together we are the Ornery One, and you are watching the Ornery One on YouTube, my channel. So what we're doing is doing our 2020 Pay It Forward for Christmas, teamed up with Custom Dynamics. They are matching dollar for dollar every amount raised for this family. We're gonna light up and lift up. That's right. This is our Pay It Forward to Chris Wilson and his family. Chris is diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. This is serious as it gets, and I couldn't be more pleased with finding this family that truly deserves our help. And this story is a love story. They've been together since they were 17, 16, out in California, went to Vegas and got married, started life, had a young daughter, and then they've gone through multiple miscarriages. Luckily they had their, what is today 11-year-old Jacob, and he's gone through some issues with health as well. And then, like I was saying, Chris has gone through all sorts of medical problems. Meeting with them today to go over everything. I'm a little heavy-hearted. I'm not quite as spirited as usual, but we've all just got a lot on our mind and a lot on our heart. So stick around, see what's on hand with our Pay It Forward. Light up and lift up. Here we go.
Of the chemo treatments, it's what they call chemo brain, and it wreaks havoc on your memory. I mean, I've lost a lot of my childhood, and I don't remember it all because of it.
Does it come and go, or is it just gone?
Sometimes it comes and goes. Sometimes I can remember things, but if I try to, like most people, they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." I mean, I'll be honest with you. There's been times where I've looked at people square in the face and I've talked to them, and I have no idea who they are.
Really?
Like I can't remember nothing.
Right.
It's really hard to. It's so hard to just explain.
We both came from really rough homes. There's a 3-year difference between the two of us. I was almost 15 when we met. Chris was working. We seen each other, and I don't know how to explain it other than we just knew. I was shy though, and I wouldn't talk to him.
I knew when first time I met her that I was like, this is the woman I'm gonna marry.
Yeah.
I love this woman already, and I don't even know her name.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And just to show you how pathetic I am, I had actually cut my finger while I was cleaning up the bars there, because it's like a buffet type place. And so I was cleaning up the bar and I cut my finger. So I went into the office and I was like, I need a Band-Aid. And I looked at her.
It was a little scratch.
It was not a cut. But, you know, I made it like I would cut my finger off.
Oh,
you know,
of course.
You know, and then I was like, you know, could you put a happy face on it and stuff like that? You
Write your number on there.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Something. And here's my number.
We actually still, that's the night that we exchanged numbers, and we still have in our photo album those 2 pieces of paper. On my 16th birthday, early in the morning, headed out to Las Vegas. So 24 years ago today. We were young, but we came from a really...
Okay, so you didn't have that support.
It was a really rough time.
Yeah. Y'all needed that.
Yeah, we needed each other, and like within the month, we found out that I was pregnant.
Oh wow.
With our daughter. We both went through a lot, we started having miscarriages after Amber was born, and I got really depressed, and Chris started drinking, and there was problems, and there was some abuse, and it got to the point where we needed to get help, and we got help, and we sought marriage counseling, anger management, and we just needed a new change. We needed to get away from, like, California has so many bad memories with just growing up and what we're around. We decided this is not what we want for our family. Just with everything we had been through, with the losses, at that point we had a diagnosis. Right before we moved here, I was told that we would never have another baby. If I did, I would never carry. When I was a child, the one person that I could rely on was my aunt. like she was stable. Her and her husband were stability for me, and she passed away when I was right before I think I was 11. And I remember that night sitting up against the door crying. I'm like, God, just bring me somebody to love me, because I felt like she was the only person that loved me back then. And I kind of held on to that, and then I met Chris. And then that night when we were talking, that, just, God, if you're real, I need to know, because I can't keep going on like this. It was just one of those things where your life has been so crappy for so long that you just have to not just do it. You don't even think about it, just jump in and do it. And before Jacob, we had 9 miscarriages. Very early, so it hurt, but it wasn't we didn't know the pain of what was to come. I don't know how to explain it other than I just knew it was time to get healthy. It was time to take things serious, and I felt like the Lord was telling me to prepare for a child, that he was going to bless us. And I'm not kidding, I heard, child, trust me and take a test. And I go and I look, and there was 1 test left, and I didn't know I had it. And sometimes you wonder why you go through what you go through. But so Jacob had C. diff. It's a intestinal infection caused by a bacteria that eats away the colon. At 6 months old, he was allergic to everything. Had his first sinus infection at 2 months old. And I'm like, God, you've blessed us with this child. And that added to my anxiety about how do I protect him, how do I keep him safe. At a year old, we found out that he had a significant IgA deficiency. He lacks a protein in his body that fights off infections, so he gets sick very easy. He has allergies, allergic to a lot of things.
So like a cold to me and you would eventually turn into pneumonia for him.
He has all of the diagnoses that fall under the autism spectrum umbrella. The psychoanalyst down there said he actually has autism spectrum disorder. He's just very high functioning. So it's been challenging. He's come a long way though.
He's got a person.
Dad is his person. Boys are mama's boys, and they love their moms so much, and I'm glad that they have that relationship.
Right. Yeah, so it's a powerful thing.
It is awesome. I love that we've started this thing that we do every night. He'll and it started when I was able to start getting back around after having the surgery. He will go to his room. He'll brush his teeth, then we'll go to his room, and we'll read a book, and then we'll pray for everybody that we know. And it's like that's our thing now every night. And the dude cannot sleep now unless we do this. He went over to his sister's and he FaceTimed me. He's like, Dad, I want you to read my book. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I read the book while we were FaceTiming. And he's like, all right, Dad, I love you. I said, I love you too. And he'll tell her that he loves her. And then he'd be like, are you going to pray? I'm like, yeah, we'll pray. I'm sorry. I totally blew my mind. I'm sorry, buddy. When I grew up, I never really had that type of relationship with my dad. My relationship with my dad didn't really start until I was older and we were working on that car together. Those are like the memories that if I lose any memories, I don't want to lose those, because those were so powerful to me.
And there wasn't very many before he passed away.
Yeah, and there wasn't very many in between that. I want him to remember that stuff. I don't want him to remember, what I went through as a kid. Right. Because with all this crap going on in the world, we don't need that stuff anymore.
No more negativity than we already put up with.
And so I want to instill in him goodness and honesty. I want him to see, no matter what I face, no matter what I'm going through, I want him to see that he can be a strong man, but still be humble at the same time.
You bet. It's two sides to it.
Because I don't want him to be that arrogant, cocky person.
I was in the middle of the nursing program, and it's crazy. You know, Chris had been healthy. We had family pictures the fall of 2017, and if you look at him, he looks like a completely different person. But in May of 2018, and the whole reason why I've led up to this is it blows your mind. The part of the program that I was in, I was entering into medical surgical nursing, and we were learning about cancers.
Mm-hmm.
Chris hadn't been sick, he had been healthy, and all of a sudden, in May, he thought he had a stomach bug. We never ever thought we would ever be going through this situation.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that this
Yeah.
would be happening. But a month later, he's still having issues. He's sleeping more. Within 2 months, he had already lost 30 pounds. He lost color. He started turning yellow. And I
Started
said,
getting real jaundiced looking.
Really?
Chris, you've got to go see the doctor. And I said, I really believe. I said, I don't want to speak this, but I really believe. And he said, don't say it.
Right.
So then he goes to see his doctor. They got his lab work back, and he was deficient in vitamin B, and he was deficient, he was anemic.
He was very anemic.
And they had called him with those results, and I said, Chris, he had called me on one of my breaks at school, and he told me what they said. I said, you need to call them back, and you need to ask them to do a cold stool test to let's find out where the bleeding is, if it has anything to do, I don't know. I just sensed in my spirit what was going on, and knowing what I was going through, like in school, what we were covering, I just had that gut instinct. You would never expect somebody who's 41 years old is going to get, colon cancer. This is what used to be thought as an older person's disease.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because they don't tell you to start checking for it until you're 50 or older.
Right. And so they found that he had blood in his stool, and he went to see the surgeon, and they got a plan to do a colonoscopy. And we went in that morning, and I just knew what they were going to find. And
Yeah.
I had clinical in the GI lab. I knew how things flowed, and I don't know, I just knew there's something different when I got called to the family room, and the surgeon sat down. There was pictures on a sheet of paper. Well, it was a thick packet of paper. He sat it down, and he was going to explain it to me, but I glanced over, and you see this black, it just looked like death, like dying tissue. It was just awful. And he said, Chris, we did find cancer. It's in the lower colon. He said, I really feel like we caught this early. It's going to be okay. We're just going to go in and we're going to remove it. And my mind's just like, okay, I knew, but you don't ever, that impact of hearing that.
He was like scheduling for a surgery so that they could go in and remove that and resect the colon.
Yeah, he believed. I said,
because that's where he believed. He's like, we caught this really super early.
I said, so what are we?
Your age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we looking at like an ostomy? Or are we looking at a resection where you're gonna put them back together? What's the plan? He said, I really feel like there's enough on I'm just gonna use medical terms, on the rectal side, that we can connect everything. He said, but I have to do a CT scan just to cover our bases. I don't know what possessed me to look in the patient portal, or even why those results were released to the patient portal before we had even heard, but it hit me in the core, and I couldn't breathe. And I just cried to see that it wasn't just in the colon, it had metastasized in his liver. And I knew what that meant. and I had to get out of there. When we sat down with the surgeon and he told us the results of the CT scan, he was like, there's no hope. This is stage 4. The only thing that we can do is palliative care, put you on chemotherapy, extend your life as long as we can. We had had enough of waiting around, not knowing, knowing that there's death inside his body, we need to take care of it right
every
away.
minute I sit there and I wait, this thing is getting worse.
Anticipation.
Yeah. And so we were just like, okay, we're going to take this in our own hands.
Yeah, it was just like doom and gloom. This is it.
Yeah, he basically said, go ahead and make your bucket list, because
that's exactly what he said.
This is going to be the end for you. He said most people, he said you'll be lucky.
Said 6 months.
Well, yeah.
If you had surgery, then that could possibly extend it out, but nobody's going to want to do surgery because it had gone to the liver. Chris, we've got to do something. I really feel like we need to check into Highlands. And Chris was against it because we were told if we went down there, he would be hooked up to a chair 3 days out of the week, like coming back every day for 3 days. And so we would have to stay down there. Well, what about Jacob? Jacob can't be, this kid has trouble sleeping anyways.
That was my number one thing, is during that whole process of them telling me basically I'm going to have to spend a better part of the week at the hospital.
Every other week.
I won't be able to see him. He won't be able to be around us, and this, that, and the other. I didn't want her to be stuck sitting there. And so that's when I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I can't do that to either one of them. So we're gonna go check out Hogs down there.
So we called them. She got all of his information that day, presented it to an oncologist, called me back to let me know. The oncologist had looked over your information. He wants to take your case. He's cleared his schedule even. He wants to know if you guys could come up here tomorrow. The surgeon here had already, Chris was in surgery. They placed a port. We almost lost him at that point because his liver, once they put him... It
taxed my liver. The anesthesia taxed my liver quite a bit.
So the day after surgery, we were back in the hospital here. Standard protocol, whenever somebody comes in after a surgery like that, they're thinking infection, like systemic infection, sepsis, and I just kept saying no. It's not even been 24 hours. The surgeon had left the access in his port in place and covered it, didn't want anybody touching it because Chris was to start chemotherapy already that Friday. They went ahead and accessed the port
against the doctor's
without permission
orders.
And they were going to start him on some heavy duty antibiotic thinking he had this infection, and I had to pull him out AMA, against medical advice. I just knew if they had started him, the plan was to admit him into the hospital. He would be there at least a week. He would miss his opportunity. I have pictures.
Started.
He was yellow. He did not.
That was pretty rough.
He did not look good.
That was bad.
Pulled him out. The next morning we went up to Fayetteville. It was on a Thursday. That was on a Wednesday. He had surgery on Tuesday to place the port back in the ER here Wednesday. Thursday morning, take him to Fayetteville to see the oncologist. They drew labs. He did not have an infection. Come to find out, he was allergic to the tramadol that they had given him. His heart rate was over 200. He was it was making him so sick. Come back home, go back out Friday morning to see the oncologist again. They check vitals, do his labs again, make sure he's a go. And he said, normally we would not start chemotherapy on somebody this sick. He said, but Chris, we don't have a choice. Sent him straight up to the chemo room, and we were there for 8 hours for his first infusion.
They didn't understand what was going on with me, and the only thing I could think is that my body was just trying to live, because it like me, it's stubborn and it's not going to give up. Ornery.
Trying to wash it out.
Like Ornery. I mean, that's it right there.
Get rid of it.
And so my body was fighting, and so to back up a little bit more, from when we found out. When I came home after the colonoscopy, she had actually she went to go get me some food because, from the anesthesia and everything. She had left, and I was by myself at the house. And I had laid on the floor, and I just kind of curled up in a ball, like, I'm done. I don't know what to do. I know in my head that everything I've heard about cancer is a death sentence. And I didn't know what to do, and so I just laid there crying and just in a fetal position, just laying there. And I know I've told this to other people before, and a lot of people have looked at me like, what? I was completely by myself, and I heard somebody say, "Are you done yet?" And I said, "Say that again." And they said, "Are you done yet?" I said, "No."
Good. Yeah.
I said, "No, I'm not done." And they said, "Good, get up and walk with me." And from that point, and I knew that it was God. And I know that, some people, they don't believe in God, and, they have their doubts and their questions about it. And that's cool with me. I get it. I was that person too in my life. And it takes extenuating circumstances for you to realize sometimes that there is something greater than you out there. And so when I heard that, I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, okay.
I just heard somebody talk to me.
Yeah.
I know I'm awake and I'm coherent here, so yeah. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah,
I'm gonna follow you, God. I'm gonna do what you tell me to do, and I did it. And it's been crazy. Like, things that have come up, there's always been a little bit something on the backside that comes back around to take care of us. I went down to part-time after all this, after I got diagnosed, because I couldn't work full-time because I didn't have it in me. I was done. 4 hours, I was done. I needed to sit down and relax. So I went to part-time. My job offered me that. Yeah.
And when he was first diagnosed, I was on my break. Like, they give you 2 weeks in between your semesters. And when we got his diagnosis, the stage 4 diagnosis, I was in my first week back from my last semester. I was like, I can't do this. I tried. I thought I was going to just try to push through.
Yeah, you just...
But he wasn't able to work, and we were trying to figure it all out, and then he was to start chemotherapy, and so I went to work at the hospital here as a CNA for a while, 6 months, and then so during that time, Chris is getting his chemotherapy. It was chemo infusions, 2 weeks on, 1 week off, but at the same time, he was on oral chemo as well. Did I say that right?
No, the infusions were, I'd go in on a Friday,
every
other week.
Every other Friday, but his oral chemo was 2 weeks on, 1 week off. So he was doing both. And the types of chemotherapy that they were using would make him so sick. And the chemo vomiting is not like any other vomiting that...
This stuff comes from, like, I don't know, from the depths of hell. I really couldn't tell you, but it just... There's being vomiting sick, like when you have the flu, and then there's chemo sickness that is like nothing I've ever experienced in my life.
Right.
And there was times where I would be at work and he'd have to pick up Jacob from school, and he'd be driving and it would hit, and Jacob, because of Jacob being sick for so long, growing up with all of it, it scares him. Like, he's so terrified of getting sick or seeing Chris sick, and so it affected him so bad.
Yeah.
Chemo agents that they use is a mixture of three, so it's oxaliplatin, Avastin, and Xeloda. The Xeloda are pills that I take.
Okay.
The oxaliplatin and the Avastin are the infusions that I receive in the port.
Okay.
But the Avastin,
The Avastin causes you to bleed easily.
it lowers the platelets.
Yeah.
It's what like starves the cancer cells. And he did that up until the end of December of 2018. Everything was going great. It blew the doctor away that
really?
he was doing so good.
Yeah.
So then January of 2019, he was just doing oral chemo.
Yeah.
His scans were improving. They said they called it partial remission. He was in partial remission.
Oh,
Like his labs, it didn't match on the scan at that point, but on his labs it had improved and his tumor markers were coming down.
So the hope came
Yeah,
back.
yeah. I was like, okay, I'm beating this. I'm on the other side of this.
And then, so in March, I went back into the program to finish up the nursing program. His next appointment was in April. I had exams in the morning. I could not sleep. And I just kept waking up with worship music, like, in my head. But it was just, like, blaring. I couldn't sleep. And I kept praying over him. And I guess I fell back to sleep, and it was the craziest thing. It was like I was going through his body, like the Lord was taking me through his body. And where the tumor was, it was like I seen that tumor just come up and flow out. Nothing gross or anything. It was just crazy. So then we head out there, and he has a scan. The doctor calls us in. He said, he didn't go over the tumor in the colon. He was talking about how the liver was improving, and like we were just getting caught up and excited. And Chris had to go up to get his port flushed, and so I was like, I got some questions, because it hit me that we didn't cover what was going on in the colon. So I talked to the nurse, and she said, well, it doesn't say, he didn't mention anything about that. And I said, I'm going through the nursing program. I know that we typically don't report unless there's something there, something abnormal. And I said, so does this mean, that nothing was found? And so she called the doctor. Well, the doctor had seen us, and he came over to the computer, and he said, is something wrong? And she told him, well, you didn't go over the colon, what's going on there? And he goes, well, and he starts going back through everything, and he said, it was not detected in the colon. And so we're like, this is awesome, So at this point, there's nothing active in the colon. We were just having to look at and deal with the liver. He wanted to continue with the oral chemo. 2019 was, that was exciting. We had good things going, but then there was problems within our church, and that was our support group, and the church just kind of fell apart. We weren't asking for a handout. We just needed that encouragement and people to talk with us. And
Support group.
like I told you last night, when you're going through something like this, you don't want people look at you like they don't know how to act. They don't know what to say.
I don't want people to look at me like I got three heads.
Still living life. Let's just talk about life, and we don't have to talk about any of this. But we get it. People don't understand. It's hard.
I made a comment to her last night, and I was sitting there and I was thinking about everything that has happened, and I've described a little bit to her about what it feels like to have chemo put in your body.
Yeah.
To be, in essence, it's poison.
Yes.
It is a chemical that is designed to kill things.
Yes.
And so the first time I had it done, I felt a little weird. Wasn't no big deal, nothing I couldn't handle, being a guy and everything.
Yeah.
I can do this. And then as it started progressing, the more and more treatments I got, the more and more I started realizing I was almost having an out-of-body experience.
Really?
Like I was just, every time I would have it, I would just kind of sit there and watch myself go, yeah, this sucks, and I don't want to do this no more.
Was that you were coping with it? That you were
I think that's how I was coping with everything I was feeling and going through. Because I had some of the side effects from it was called neuropathy, and so basically you have this numbness tingly feeling in your fingertips. Like if I was to go like that, it sends shock waves through my nerve endings.
Okay.
When you'd go into the infusion rooms, and really super cool people, really super nice people, I have to say that if you didn't have a heart for that type of job, then they wouldn't let you be in there.
Yeah.
Because those people, the nurses and that deal with you and everything, that help you with the infusions, they're so caring and so loving, and it's awesome to see the human decency that you see there. Because you're like, the one nurse actually told me, he was like, I think it's when you went to go get food, he sat with me because I was there. Sometimes I have to sit there 4 hours at a time. And so it happened to be around lunchtime. She's like, well, I'm going to go get some food. So she went and got food. Well, he's seen her leave, and he had been taking care of me. Well, he came over and he sat with me and talked with me while she was gone. And he told me, he said, he said, you don't belong here. And I was like,
damn straight.
Yeah, I agree with you on that
You
one.
look around and it's just elderly. Very rarely you would find some, young person in a chair.
There's hardly anybody that's my age.
So how old are you right now?
How old am I?
Yeah.
43, right? Yeah.
So you're 43. You was born in 1977.
Yep. If I didn't have my faith that I did, I don't see how I could do or go through what I've been through.
Yeah, man.
Because
There's times where he said, I don't know if I can do this.
A friend of mine who's a very good friend, I consider him a brother.
Yeah.
And he called me just to tell me that he loved me.
Yeah.
Because he had seen what she had posted.
Right.
And we got hung up the phone, and I looked at her and I told her, I said, the hardest thing about all of this is not what it does to me, but how it affects everybody I know and love. Because I can deal with me. I can fix what's going on with me, but with them,
out of your control.
I can't fix it for them. I can't change that for them.
No.
And it's so hard to face that. It's almost like I don't want to face it at times, because it's easier for me to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it hurts me more to see what everybody else is going through, because I know that what I'm going through and what I'm feeling is hard enough. I can only imagine, like with her, if this was to take me before, I'm ready to go, and what would that do to them? What would that do to her? What would it do to my son? What would it do to my daughter? My mom, my brother, my sister,
So have you had to cross that to where you're like, I'm sure you have, there's no delicate way to ask it, but what are you planning for? Like, how are you planning for this?
This is why I started this a few months ago in my own mind, and I really hadn't discussed it with her, except for the fact that I want to put them in a place to where I know that when I go, they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
My son's going to be in a home that he can call home.
Tell me one of your goals that you'd like to see for them.
But one of my goals has been one of the biggest ones that I've been trying to get going and get off the ground, is for them to have a place that they can call home.
Yes.
That's my number one thing.
Right.
So in March of this year,
Yeah.
March 20th, we got word that Chris was finally a candidate for surgery to remove the scar tissue where the original tumor was, because he hadn't been up until that point.
Just because of how bad my liver was. My liver had actually grown bigger than
just couldn't.
Yeah, and the doctor was like, surgery's off the table.
That's why chemo was spread out over the last couple of years.
Got you.
So March 20th, he got word that his liver had shrunk down. The masses within his liver, had shrunk down. We knew that there was nothing active for a year in the colon.
Okay.
A month to the day, Chris started having problems later on, that in March, or beginning of April. A month to the day from getting that news, I took Chris back because he was having major issues for a couple of weeks. They were trying different treatment options, and he'd been working part-time this whole time. When I graduated school, I was working for a clinic in town, but the insurance was so much for him that it cost more than I made, and so that's why I've not been working. And then COVID hit, and our daughter was pregnant, and she had hyperemesis gravidarum and all these complications. So it's like, okay, I see why. I'm home, I'm needed. Yeah. But Chris was working until he got really sick at the mid-April. We were communicating with oncology. They were giving him different oral medications. They thought he had a stool blockage in his colon. I'm like, I know this is not, something more is going on. So on April 20th, we went up to Highlands, and the nurse, same thing. They kept doing x-rays, and I'm not confrontational. I don't like confrontational, but I got a little confrontational that day. And I was like, look, if it's not a stool blockage, it's not going to show up on an x-ray. We need a CT. And I just kept pushing. And she kept blowing me off. And I was like, he's having pain here. And that's not my character. But it got him his CT scan. And that's when we waited 2 hours before a doctor had time to come in. We had no idea what was going on. His doctor wasn't available. He was at a different location. And one of his colleagues came in and said, okay, Mr. Wilson, we have an obstruction. It's not a stool obstruction. We need to admit you now. And
the scar tissue had actually caused webbing to create inside of my
on the
colon.
Inside of the colon. Like his tumor, the original tumor never grew into, here's the colon, and ever grew this way.
So it wasn't the tumor, it was actually
scar tissue
right
from it.
In that area. So
okay.
That day we didn't plan on going out there. It was just an emergency thing. Our daughter and our son-in-law were having the gender reveal. So Chris was like, I can't not prepare my son. I can't just not be there when they do this. And she looked at me, the doctor did, and she said, if you promise to bring him back first thing in the morning and you watch him closely tonight, he can go home. But I need you back up at the hospital first thing in the morning. So we came home, prepared Jacob.
We sat down and we explained to him that, look, this is what's going on. I'm going to have the surgery. I said, they're feeling pretty optimistic about things. They're going to remove what's there and hopefully put everything back together.
They could put it back together and it would be
good out the door, have me on the back, say I'm okay.
The only thing, because it was an emergency, like in a month prior when the doctor said he was a candidate for surgery, they were actually going to pull a specialist from Little Rock in to deal specifically with the liver and take care of, he would have been cancer-free or close to cancer-free as possible. But because the emergency, they weren't going to be able to deal with the liver. They were just going to go in, take it out, resect. And so April 21st, we all went up and we dropped Chris off. Of course, we weren't allowed in the building because of COVID. That was hard.
A 40-foot walk felt like a mile to me. Because I look back and they're sitting in the car and they can't come in with me, and I'm getting ready to face this
alone
huge surgery alone. And the doctors are telling me it'll be laparoscopic, you'll be okay, no big deal, you'll be out back on your feet 6 weeks.
Dude, still
good to go. But still, it was just, I'm watching them, and my daughter, she's pregnant, so she's emotional anyway. As soon as I start walking away, she starts bawling.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And I'm like, I'm trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
Because I want to show them that I'm strong, that I can do this,
Yeah.
I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But, I turned my back and I had to keep walking forward to that door. Because I knew if I would have turned back around, I would have said, no, I can't do this.
Yeah.
He had to do NPO, nothing by mouth, prior to surgery. It was the start of it. He started having complications. So to know exactly what was going on, I don't remember a sigmoscopy or something where they light up and they do basically like a colonoscopy all over again.
Mm-hmm.
They seen exactly what was going on. His birthday was Friday the 24th. The surgeon called me and she said, we're gonna have to go in. Like, they were trying to clear everything out prior to surgery so that it was easier, so there was less risk of infection, leakage, and all of that. She said, we can't wait, we've got to go in. The way she explained it was that they were going to go in laparoscopically, but that test revealed that his colon was dilated because of all the medications they were giving him to try to clear out this, what they thought was a stool blockage, was not. And so she said, we may have to open him up. And I said, okay. And, she's an awesome doctor, great with communication. Friday morning, they called me. We talked. They came and got you early, so we didn't get to talk for very long, but we FaceTimed for a minute. And then they said, we'll call you to let you know when he's prepped, which will be in about an hour. We'll call you mid-surgery to give you an update, and then afterwards, I'll call you and I'll give you a report. 2 hours later, I get a call, and the nurse, I can hear them in the background. They're in the OR room. And she said, we're halfway through the surgery. The doctor just wanted me to give you a call, update you. He's doing good. And I was like, okay, did she have to open him up, or is it laparoscopically? And she said, no, he had to be open up. And my heart just sunk. So I waited. That's all the information she would give me, that he was doing good. 2 hours later, his surgeon calls me and she said, I don't have good news. She said we had to open him up. And she said that, so where the primary tumor was, the scar tissue went through the colon, so it caused the blockage, but it also adhered to his small intestine. So they had to remove that area. She said when we went in and we laparoscopically and we seen how bad it was, we had to open him up. And she said his colon, which is normally, about here, was like this all the way through. It was just so dilated. She said that the right side, so his ascending colon, was completely dead. It got to the point where she said if he didn't have surgery today, he wouldn't have made it through the weekend. The walls of the colon was separating. Like, it was just...
They were disintegrating. That's how bad it was.
She said he had a perforation, so there was bowel spillage into the abdomen.
Gosh, man.
She said there was and I didn't know this at the time because I wasn't able to be there, so I didn't know what all was going on, but they had a huge surgical team, 2 colorectal surgeons. They were all arguing. They were going to take all of his large intestine. They didn't, if this was this bad, they didn't want to take the chance, but she said while she was working on the small intestine, they had to remove part of his small intestine as well. They had a team come in and check blood flow and function to the rest, so they were able to save his transverse and his descending colon. They removed part of the sigmoid and left the rectum. So he has a pouch that folds over at the rectum and a pouch at the transverse colon. And then the part where it's cut here, they pulled it out. And it's now a functioning mucus fistula because they were hoping that they could go back in and reconnect what was left. The small intestine is brought out here. So they cut him from here to here. He had what they were trying to do, a colostomy here, ended up being the mucus fistula, and then he has the ileostomy here. So after day 2 of being in the hospital with them running the test, he was in so much pain because that's when it blew everything up. He was on morphine. We couldn't talk. I had no clue what was going on. They're dealing with COVID up there. It was hard to get any kind of information to know what was going on. It was just a wait and see and hear from the doctor. And then after surgery, it was rough. Like he had an NG tube for a couple of days. They pulled the NG tube,
which is not fun.
I guess the nurse that pulled the NG tube looked at the wrong date. They looked at the admittance date and not his surgical date, so it got pulled too soon. He started vomiting, which caused this to rip open.
Yeah, it caused a couple of the staples to rip open.
And so he didn't heal. He was in a very, very dark, he did okay the first couple of days, but then I'd never seen him this way. I was seriously concerned for his mental health. He was in a very dark place. Everything he talked about was negative.
I get it.
He was angry. You go in thinking you're just going to have this, and he said, I woke up and...
I would be just absolutely...
Yeah. She felt like when they woke me up after the surgery, she actually came to my room to check on me. And she's like, Mr. Wilson, she goes, you okay? And I said, I'm okay. I said, what happened?
Yeah.
And she got this whiteboard that they write all their stuff on, and she erased it, and so she starts drawing what she did.
Oh wow.
And she goes, I just want to explain to you, she said, if I didn't do what I did, you would not be here right now.
She was heartbroken that she even had to do what she did.
Well, I mean, but the thing that kind of got me there is pulling the tube too early and getting sick, and then you've got that, and then you wake up not knowing that you ain't blaming nobody, you're just dealing with stuff.
Yeah, and I'm trying to process it, and so I was...
COVID going on, nobody around you.
The hardest thing for me was I was up there by myself. I would, we've done everything that we've been through together.
That's right.
And so for me to face this up here by myself, I was like done. I was like, I just want to be home. I want to be with my family. I don't care. I want to be out of here. I'm done. I'm done with this place. I'm done with the nurses, their attitudes, the doctors. I'm just done.
Yeah,
I was done.
Get it.
I'll be honest with you. If I would have faced any of this, the recuperation and the hospital stay, if I'd have been any of it, I think I healed better and faster when I was with the people that love me.
Dude, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I get it. I get what the hospitals do. I understand what they're doing.
I do too.
But there are precautions to take to have family members with people, because I really fully believe that if those people, just hearing their voices would be enough.
So they let me come up, and they did let me stay. I was only supposed to be there for an hour, but they let me stay the whole day.
Good for them.
When I left, physical therapy was getting him up for the first time. They were supposed to get him up the next day, and it's not, we're not blaming, it's just there was so much going on in the hospital at the time, and nobody knew, nobody was paying attention to what was going on with his surgical wound. So Chris calls me as I'm coming in, and he said, I got up, and the therapist had to sit me right back down. Blood's just gushing out of my stomach, and I'm like, this isn't right. And so I'm calling him, like, what is going on?
There was a pool sitting at my feet, and I'm just looking down, and I'm going, okay, this is not right.
Come on, guys, I'm not a doctor, but I'm bleeding out here.
I kind of looked at him, and I said,
That's not Kool-Aid,
I don't think
guys.
that's supposed to be
Yeah,
doing
no
that.
joke.
And
You
then,
know, and he's like, no, it's not. Sit here. I will be right back.
Jeez.
and then when I talked to the nurse, she was like, I want you to, remain calm. We got him. I want you to relax and enjoy your weekend. And I'm just like, this isn't normal. And she said, it is normal. It's normal fluid. Well, Monday, and I don't even remember what day it is now, but we had a huge storm in the area. The surgeon couldn't come in, and she was good to check on him every single day. Surgeon couldn't get in because of the storm. It was when that tornado had gone through the Fayetteville area. And so the next day, the surgeon came in and found an infection and opened him back up.
Yeah, right there in the
Like
room.
it just doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't end. And
The infection was, I guess, when the stitches or when the staples had busted when I vomited, it actually created a perfect environment for an infection to set in.
Okay. Well.
And so,
another tube, nothing by mouth again. So he went weeks without eating. Which he lost muscle mass, he lost a lot of weight. The doctor finally agreed a few days later that he wasn't going to do well at home or at the hospital. And she said, if I release him to you, I had to stay in constant communication between the wound care ostomy nurse out there and the surgeon, but he came home. I took care of him at home. We had tried home health care to come out and help with his wound back. But what they sent him home with at the hospital wasn't strong enough for the wound that he had. So he spent the weekend at home. We went back to Fayetteville on Monday, and the tunneling went all the way down to the peritoneum, like all the way down to the lining that holds the organs in place. He had 2 tunnels of infection, and the surgeon came in and she just pushed, and it just gushed.
now, in the hospital, when she opened me up, she says, like I said again, you have to meet this lady to understand her.
Yeah.
Very sweet lady. She looks at me and she goes, you're going to hate me. She goes, but I have to squeeze your stomach because I have to see how much is in there. I have to get it out.
Yeah.
And she said, there's no real easy way for me to do this except to do what I'm about to do. I said, can I have something before you do? And she looked at me and she smiled. She goes, oh, don't worry. They're already on their way here. Mm-hmm. So I grabbed this rail and I grabbed this rail, and she bumped my stomach with both sides of her hands, and she just kind of pressed down, and it was like a volcano of stuff just started coming out of my stomach.
Hurt like hell.
Yeah, it hurt real bad. It hurt more than the surgery itself.
No kid.
Just because I could feel her pushing on everything, and I was already bruised up and sore, and so she kept saying, I'm so sorry, she goes, you're doing great, I just want you to know it. And I could tell she was hating what she was doing right then and there to me, but she said, if I don't do this, it's going to be bad. Yep. And I was like, do what you need to do. You're the doctor, you know.
He was admitted the 24th of April, and he left like the second week of May. Came home, but we went back, and that's when they discovered how bad the infection was. Yeah. So it took several months to get that healed. We were going, they wanted us out in Fayetteville 3 times a week for that, but we were coming to our wound care, and the doctor at wound care here said, to be honest with you, this is too much for you. He needs to go to a nursing home. Right. And I told you about that, and he was like, or I told him, I said, we've been through everything together. I can't do that.
I told him I ain't going to nursing home.
July, he started having kidney problems because of the ileostomy. So whenever you have an ileostomy, everything comes out of you quickly, and that's one of the main concerns, is to keep you hydrated. So he's not been on chemo from the time he's been in the hospital.
So that's one thing you're fighting, but this happened, which keeps you from fighting this thing because of it's just you're just in limbo.
Yeah. So the whole time he wasn't on chemotherapy to address what was going on in the liver.
Right.
in July, at the beginning of July and the end of July, he was in the ER here. They did CT scans both times because he had kidney stones caused from being dehydrated and, just everything. Nothing had changed as far as the cancer. They said everything, it was clear in the abdomen, everything was stable in the liver. Chris goes to oncology in September, and they did a CT scan, and that's when he got the news that the liver had worsened, where they removed the primary tumor in the colon. There was a new spot to the right of it.
Something new had grown.
And what we found out this last Friday was that, there was a piece from the surgery that had been left or it fell or just something, and it implanted, and it's just grown.
So you're saying if you were to pull a weed and a piece of the root or something fell down in some muddy water,
and
then it just starts growing again.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened. And so now the surgery to remove the primary tumor was kind of, the only thing it really did was
it saved your life.
Save my life, but now we're back where we were again, with there being something down in that area again.
So here we are again with this and this.
Yeah.
But
Back and forth though.
Friday, the pet, it's been difficult with fights with insurance, trying to get them to cover scans and so the last time he had a PET scan, the CT scan shows that there's something there. The PET scan shows what's active.
Okay.
So they feed you with this radioactive sugar solution and
Yep.
so
Okay, so is this where we're at now?
yes.
So we're at the place where this is dropped off in there. It's starting to form and grow.
It's not just started to form. So he hadn't had a PET scan since January. He finally had one Friday. He said that the cancer throughout, the new spot has grown. It's not just this small spot. It's
from where it dropped off.
Yes, it's grown.
Okay.
It's gotten bigger.
The liver has progressively gotten worse, and everything lit up. So it's all active. The chemotherapy is no longer working. So that's why he's feeling good right now, because he's not. They said just stop the chemo. He's not taking that.
He said there's no point in taking it because it's not doing any good.
Okay. So what's the next thing? What do we do next?
The next thing is, while he was in the hospital, they ran some, I don't know what it's called, some kind of testing on the tumor itself, to get the DNA.
To get what it's actually is, its structure.
The structure, the receptor cells within the tumor tissue, and it doesn't.
So they've got to name it to know how to fight it.
Well, there's certain types of with chemotherapy treatments now, they're finding that they can fine tune certain medicines to specifically attack those certain cells, so that it's not just an all over destroying your whole body.
It'll still, what they're going to try on you next is going to still affect your healthy cells, because so what we found is the cancer in Chris's body has HER2 cells, which everybody has them. It's just there's only a specific number on each person's cells. Chris's cells, the cancer cells within his body, has too many of those. So it's helping those cells to divide rapidly. So this is a very aggressive type of cancer. He said it was HER2-NU, which I've looked up, and they say it's one of the harder ones to attack. But they have I guess it's like a biologic treatment that will attack those HER2 cells. I'm not real sure how, if it's going to just stop it from dividing and growing and spreading, or if it actually is going to attack and kill. I've done research now. I have questions. So we're kind of we know that this is happening. They're wanting him back this Friday. He goes and sits in a chair, and they're going to start this. In order to have this treatment, it affects the heart. So he's got to have he's got to have tests on that prior to sitting in the chair.
So here we are
Friday.
again we're doing this, but then it may cause this. So it's this whole give and take.
Yeah.
Where's your headspace right now?
I'm kind of in limbo right now because I've had time to fully process the whole scan and everything on Friday and what the doctor said, and I started to get disappointed because, you know, I've been fighting this thing for 2 years.
Dude, how could you not?
And it's really started to get to me as far as, you know, where am I going from here? You know, I mean, is this just what it's going to be like until I go? I mean,
It's like you're out on the ocean and a storm is beating away, and, you know, like you think of like rose and stuff and how they wither and change, you know, like driftwood and stuff, and you feel like you're being beaten from every side, and it's like, how much more is there? How much more can we take? And
you know, when's the next shoe going to drop type feeling.
I can totally understand that, man. And I have no idea what you're going through right now, but however you're feeling, it's okay.
Yeah.
Dude, it's totally fine if you're mad or sad, if you have some aggression or whatever the hell you got going on. I totally respect that. I don't like sitting here across from you. You know, I'm being upbeat, man. But I don't know what I'd be in you. I don't know if I'd be punching a hole in the wall, if I'd be feeling sorry for myself, or if I just wanted to be around everybody that loved me and just love them hard. You know, because I would assume you go through different emotions throughout the whole day.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you couldn't.
And she's actually said that I'll like, one minute I'll be okay and the next minute I'll be like,
he'll pull away, and he
I
won't
don't want anybody to be around me.
Man, I'm okay. I'm totally healthy and feel great. I'm that way. I mean, I can't, like, your mental, like, if I was to rank you right now, me sitting here meeting you, you may be just doing this, but I feel like we're fixing to go get a beer and watch some ball. You know what I mean? It's just, so the spirit you've got right now, if you can maintain that, and what you've been through is a testimony to whatever you're believing in. And I know what you're believing in. But you have the ability to help people. And like you told me last night, like, you guys are feeling like, oh, thank you so much, and bull. We thank you, because what we'll be able to do with you and you is change people's lives. We're going to put a YouTube video together, and this YouTube video is going to be out there forever. And we're going to title it, and we're going to put all the description, and we're going to do all the things that we're doing. People are going to look back on this, and then we're going to follow your story. We're going to tell your story. And dude, 10, 15 years, we may be sitting right here telling you how, what you need, what that person needs to do to keep it up. But you can be you're inspiring as hell. You really are. I don't know how tough you're tougher than I'll ever be, man. I can't believe the shit you've gone through and you're sitting here right now.
I don't know what to say. I've finally found something that I don't have anything to say about.
Well, man, with everything you guys just told me, like, woo.
This whole thing, I don't know how much Chris shared with you when you guys talked, but this whole thing is crazy because, so the week before Thanksgiving, Chris's employer wouldn't let him come back to work. They allowed him to, like, we clean the laundry rooms and pick up trash and take care of the hedges to keep our apartment.
Groundskeeping stuff.
It's supposed to be for up to 15 hours a week, which doesn't, we're doing more work for less, but we have a roof over our head, and that's been the whole thing. Like, at least we have that. And it's no set hours, as long as he turns in his weekly logs that this has been taken care of, and his employer was really great to do this for us, except for the part, he could have went back to work. He only had a 20-pound weight restriction, but they weren't willing to work with him. With the whole kidney thing, his potassium's been dropping, and so it affects the heart, and then it makes him dizzy, and they're wanting him to do maintenance stuff that he's not supposed to be even doing. And
climb ladders and things.
so Wednesday, before Thanksgiving, he got called into the office. He's never gotten a write-up or anything before.
I worked for this company for like 5-6 years now.
And she wrote him up, and she said, next time it's termination and you guys are out. And it's just like, so that's where the whole thing was, why it's so important to find a place. And we've been like when Chris was in the hospital, and the no income coming, and what we did have from disability went to the most important things, and we lost vehicles and we've lost stuff, and so we were trying to find a way, like there's hardly any rentals in town right now, trying to find a house with the program where they go off of your income. That way when I do get back to work, then it will, they can adjust it. We found out because of the stuff that happened over the summer, he's 40 points away from getting a loan, like his credit score. So they ran a thing last week to tell us that how to correct it. And so we were like, okay, our daughter's in-laws were thinking, oh, let's do a GoFundMe. And then we get this call from you, and we're just like, oh my gosh, this, could be a way.
So you're saying what you would do, what you're thinking of doing with the pay it forward is it go toward getting in a house.
So that we have that.
Yeah. So
nobody can hold something over our head, and
totally totally get that. Okay, so
Threaten you with your
that's some good news right there, because in a pay it forward, a lot of people want to know what they're doing with their money. A lot of people pay medical bills and all that, which I know you guys have, but really what you're trying to do, and this is really touches the core of me, is like, dude, you could die tomorrow. I could die tomorrow. And the thing that we want to do is make sure our loved ones are taken care of.
Yep.
So we want them in a place, like you said, they call their own. And that's your goal. And it's the truth. It's life. And we need to know the boy, what he likes, what he would, go ahead, I knew that was coming. You've been adamant about this.
So if you could share with us, and like a little bit of maybe what Jacob is into, or even the grandbaby, maybe something that they need to at your house that would,
So we need to know what he's into, what he's liking.
Yeah.
And when you asked last night, I'm just like, I can't. I feel like it's too big. Like Jacob's into games,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
video games, and his Xbox is
Okay, so
taking a
yeah.
crap.
That's
So
what we need.
what does he like? What is
So
it?
does he have just an Xbox, or does he have a
He has
PlayStation and Xbox? And
no, he just
just
has the
Xbox.
Xbox.
So he has the Xbox.
Yeah.
So he needs that newest, greatest. Okay.
Well, he doesn't.
No, I mean that's how I feel. I mean, if I'm going to ask for something, and this is the way I
the
am.
newest.
And then like the other things, he's into like coding.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's very like that's his.
Cool.
Like he plays Minecraft a lot on
Yeah.
on the we have a PC that he uses, and he plays Minecraft on it a lot. And so he's like all the time changing things. Like one day I got on the computer and he had recoded it to where when I popped
And
up,
we didn't even know he could do this.
Yeah, I pop up the internet window and it actually is completely set up different
Mm-hmm.
than what it normally is, and I'm like,
Yeah, he's messing around.
did you do this? And
That's
he's
really
like,
cool.
yeah, I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we know that.
Okay, what types of games and stuff is he into on like the Xbox and stuff? Like you said, coding.
What
Do
about
they have-
PlayStation? The new PlayStation's out.
He's been talking.
He's been talking about a PlayStation.
Because his friends all have,
They all have
the
the
new
PlayStation.
PlayStation and playing
PlayStation
some
that and he wants to play the
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man game that came out with it, the new Spider-Man.
There you go. Thinking.
I told Chris last night, I feel like, and it's kind of like that where everything's happening and it's happening so fast and you're getting hit from different sides and all you know to do is just keep going. You are numb. You just keep going and do what you have to do, and then it hits you like a ton of bricks when you have that downtime or just,
Whew, man, Steph, what do you think about this?
It's heavy. It's it resonates with us a little bit about what they're going through. Of course, we can't completely relate, but it sucks, and we have an opportunity where we can reach out and help someone here at Christmas, just like someone reached out and helped us.
Yeah, this really makes a true circle for us. If you don't know, 7 years ago we about lost Steph to a tumor. We had emergency brain surgery within a week there, right at Christmas, and we wouldn't have had a Christmas if our community didn't step up, bought all of our kids, 5 of them, Christmas presents, plus provided us with our Christmas meal. And like I said, without that, there would not have been a Christmas. So this is our way of paying it forward on this 2020 Christmas season, and super excited to be teamed up with Custom Dynamics, matching dollar for dollar.
Yes, so you guys can donate on our website, theorneryone.com. We also have our Facebook blog page that has our story, and you can donate directly through Facebook as well.
Yeah, and I do want to mention too, we're set up on Amazon with Amazon Smiles. If you'll click the Ornery One, they'll make a donation to us through that. Also, you can buy Jacob maybe a gift if you don't want to donate.
Yes, so on Amazon, if you look down in the description below, there's a link for Christmas wish list from Amazon that is directly favoring the family. So there's a list for Jacob and of course for Chris and Shanah.
Yeah, be a pretty cool Christmas, there's no doubt about it. And if you can't donate or do something to buy on Amazon, you can share. You can share, reshare, get the story out about this family that definitely deserves a hand up during this Christmas season. Please, please, please help us help them. Let's do good and be good.
That's right.
Faux show. And with that being said, guys, y'all stay ornery.